Welcome into the FF Warriors podcast. I am your host, Kyle Sweat. Week 6 is finally in the books. Today I want to go over some waiver wires looking ahead to Week 7, see who we could pick up to maybe help you with this week. We do have some bye weeks that we're going through right now. And just maybe, some players that have a good outlook going forward or a path to production, maybe some possible high value handcuffs. Stay tuned. We're going to go ahead and go over that. Also, I want to go over some news and injuries. So stay throughout the full episode. As always, if you enjoy the content, please give us a like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Follow us on our socials, all linked below. Without further ado, let's go ahead and look into Week 6 news and injuries. Looking forward also to Week 7. So first thing, Robbie Anderson was traded to the Cardinals for a 6th and a 7th round pick. So this does further cement that Marquise Brown is going to be out, reportedly out indefinitely per Cliff Kingsbury. I did see another report saying that possibly 6 weeks he's expected to be out. So somewhere between 6 weeks and maybe season ending is Marquise Brown's injury update. So definitely a big wide range of outcomes there. So they wanted to add Robbie Anderson to kind of solidify their wide receiver core. Luckily, they have DeAndre Hopkins coming back at a perfect time, considering the Marquise Brown injury. We did get an update as well on Carson Wentz. He is expected out 4 to 6 weeks with that broken finger. And they did also come out today and say that it's going to be Taylor Heinicke that's going to be and rookie quarterback Sam Howell will be backing him up. We've seen Taylor Heinicke play before. He's a fine spot starter. He's not somebody that's going to really put you over the top. Personally, from what I take from this is we've seen like I said, what Taylor Heinicke has done. We're seeing what Carson Wentz has done. Neither one of them are really going to give you exactly what you're needing here if you're the Washington Commanders. And they're really not in a position for, to win the division or even go to the playoffs. So it's a very curious decision to start Taylor Heinicke and not the rookie quarterback Sam Howell to see what he might be able to provide the offense. So as well as, you've seen Bailey Zappi and what he's doing in New England. You would think that might inspire them to try their own rookie. But maybe he's not up to par yet with the playbook or comfortable in the offense. You don't really know what's going on there, but logic would dictate, considering that they most likely would be, in the top half of the draft coming in next year, and there it is a very good draft for quarterbacks to see what they might have in Sam Howell. So maybe he does get a shot, and it's just not this week, or he's not going to start this week, but we'll see what happens with that. But my opinion is they should definitely give the rookie a shot and see what he has, and they'll have a better idea of what they got going forward. But that's Ron Rivera for you. So moving on, let's look at some Week 7 waiver wires. We're just going to do it by position. First, let's look at some quarterbacks. My number one waiver quarterback is going to be Matt Ryan. He's 29% owned on Sleeper. This past week, he did go 42 of 58, 389 yards and 3 touchdowns. Definitely a bounce back game for him. He does have a good matchup over the next 2 weeks. He is facing Tennessee Titans and the Washington Commanders, and he's averaging 42 attempts per game, which is a decent amount of volume. So he's somebody that I would definitely pick up, and you can play him going forward. And also for this week, cover a couple buys for yourself. Next one is going to be Marcus Mariota, 23% owned on Sleeper. He's averaging 16 points per game. There is a low passing volume on that offense, but he does provide a rushing floor. He has a medium schedule, not the easiest, not the hardest for the next 5 weeks, but looking further down for the playoffs, he has a great playoff schedule, great playoff matchups. So that's somebody that you can maybe stash for later. He might be serviceable for now as well. And that Atlanta offense the team in general is a little better than what was expected. And Marcus Mariota is a part of that. And I think he does have a little bit of a safe floor. Not a great upside, but somebody that you could definitely pick up, plug in for at least this week. And like I said, looking further on when you get into the playoffs, he's not a bad option. Next option is Daniel Jones, 29% owned on Sleeper. He's averaging 15 fantasy points per game, and this is all PPR, by the way. And all the numbers, ownership numbers, are from Sleeper. That's again my preferred platform for my leagues and where I get these numbers from. Now back to Daniel Jones. He does have a plus matchup over the next 2 weeks. He's facing Jacksonville and Seattle. Also provides a rushing floor similar to Marcus Mariota. And he's somebody that I would look for kind of for these next 2 weeks at least. See what happens. Their offense is going to continue to kind of take some steps forward. Wan'Dale Robinson came back from injury. He might provide a spark to the offense. Last guy I want to look at is going to be Jared Goff, 52% owned, so a little bit on the higher end of ownership. Some people may have dropped him for the bye last week. And, there is a top 15 offense there in the league through the first 5 weeks. There is a tough matchup in week 7 against Dallas, but after that, it's a pretty good schedule. So he might not be the best option for week 7, but definitely somebody that I would pick up. That offense is only going to continue to get better. They're going to have DeAndre Swift back. Maybe here in week 7, Jameson Williams is coming off of the PUP list here very soon. So it's only going to be wheels up going forward for Jared Goff, and he still has one of the best offensive lines in the league. So it's somebody I would look at, and he is not just a spot starter, but I do see him as a solid option going forward. So definitely look at him. Honorable mention as well. He's a little higher owned, but if Trevor Lawrence is available, I would maybe look at him. He's another good option. Moving on to running backs. So Kenyon Drake for the Baltimore Ravens, 7.7% owned on Sleeper. He only had 10 attempts, but he was very efficient with 119 yards on those attempts. I could see him maybe getting 5 to 10 attempts per game. J.K. Dobbins still dealing with that injury. Was reported some stiffness here in this last week. Now also, Gus Edwards is coming back from injury. He's 23% owned. He's another one that's kind of like a 2-for-1 here. Baltimore Ravens backfield. And I would say Kenyon Drake's a little bit more of a flyer. I'm more comfortable with Gus Edwards if he's playing, that he would get a little bit more bulk of the carries if J.K. Dobbins is either inefficient or goes back down with an aggravated injury. So maybe look at both of those guys. Again, I would say Kenyon Drake's a little bit more of a deep league flyer. Maybe not somebody you would pick up in a 10 team, but I would look at Gus Edwards in all formats because he does have that upside to potentially take over that starting role. He's been very efficient and good with any work that he's gotten in the past before his injury. So look at those two guys. Next is going to be Jerick McKinnon, 18% owned on Sleeper. He's led the backfield in snap percentage 5 out of 6 games this year. Is more of a bench stash. He doesn't get a lot of touches. He is more involved in the passing game, but doesn't really have a good weekly floor. He's more of just a handcuff. He doesn't really have much standalone value, except maybe your outlier week here or there, but definitely somebody to stash if you have space in case something happens with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Also, Isaiah Pacheco is getting a little bit more work in the backfield. He might, be another stash as well if you have the space, but more of just a deep league guy. Matt Breida, pure handcuff. He's the direct backup for Saquon Barkley, 4.4% owned on Sleeper. And Barkley has been getting banged up in the last 2 weeks. So he's definitely somebody that I would look to add just in case Saquon does come out with an injury and he does have to miss any playing time. He would automatically step into the starting role. He would have a workhorse role there with New York. And as we've seen so far, they've kind of had everything going through Saquon in the running game. So he's a very high value addition to just stash on your bench in case that happens. And I would definitely look at doing that if you have the space. Moving on, another guy to kind of stash is Donta Foreman. He's the backup to Christian McCaffrey for the Carolina Panthers. He's owned in 11.6% of leagues on Sleeper. He's, like I said, the next running back up. And considering the trade rumors revolving around Christian McCaffrey recently, he's somebody that you should definitely maybe look at potentially adding as somebody to stash in case that happens. Last year, when he was put into a starting role for the Tennessee Titans after Derrick Henry went down with injury, he averaged over 20 touches a game in his starting role. He rushed over 100 yards in 3 out of the 6 games as a starter. I could see him getting a similar type of workload here if he was to get that starting role. And again, this is assuming that there isn't a running back that gets sent back to Carolina in a possible trade scenario, i.e., maybe Cam Akers. But somebody that's worth a stash, hold him there. Like I said, he's immediately going to be, I wouldn't say an RB1, but he's going to be, have workhorse volume in that offense. So somebody to definitely take a shot on, and if you have the space. If you don't, definitely don't push any of these waivers if you don't really have the space. I would stick with what you have. If the potential ceiling of one of these waiver additions is not better than what you have, then definitely don't force the issue. Moving on, it's similar, just kind of a handcuff. Jalen Warren, 19.8% owned on Sleeper, handcuff for Najee Harris. He would inherit a workhorse role if Najee was to go down with an injury, and he has been averaging over 4 yards per carry on the season. So I can see him being pretty good with that volume if he was to get it. So it's another guy to look at as a potential waiver add. Also, Latavius Murray. So after the Monday night game, he definitely took over that backfield. At least that's what they've shown from that game, because Melvin Gordon only had 3 carries, and Latavius Murray led the backfield easily. He had over 14 carries on the game compared to Melvin Gordon, who was a perceived starter with 3. So, and he's not owned in very many leagues. I actually don't have that percentage pulled up right in front of me. Just kind of added him here in the end here, but definitely somebody to look at as another option. He could continue to get the workload there. Now, I mean, that offense is struggling heavily, so I don't see him having like a huge ceiling, but volume is king in fantasy football, especially with running backs. So if you can get a guy that could potentially get you 15, 20 touches per game for the rest of the season, because we know that Javonte Williams is out, then he's definitely somebody that I would put up here as, one of the higher options. Probably He'd probably be my number one option out of these running backs mentioned, because he's guaranteed that workload as far as we can see. Because I know that Melvin Gordon's definitely struggled with fumbles so far this year, and I think they've kind of lost a little bit of confidence with him in the offense and his ball security. So Latavius Murray could have won that backfield going forward. So moving on to some wide receivers. Tyquan Thornton, he's a rookie wide receiver for the New England Patriots. He's only owned in 4% of leagues. Just came back to play. I believe this was his first game back here in Week 6. He has second-round draft capital. He has big playability. He went for 4 receptions on 5 targets, only 37 yards, but he also had a touchdown, and he also added 3 carries for 16 yards and a touchdown. So they're using him a little bit in a Debo type fashion, getting some carries, getting some looks in the air. He's got 2 touchdowns already, so definitely somebody to look at. I think that he's going to continue to grow in that offense, and the way that Bailey Zappi is playing, if he continues to earn that job and gets the role, even if Mac Jones comes back, I could see Tyquan Thornton being somebody that could provide some value for not only now but for the long run. So definitely, I would say he's up there. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's a number 2 wide receiver there in Cleveland, 27.3% owned on Sleeper. He's played over 80% of the snaps in 5 out of the 6 games played so far. He has a yards per catch average of 10.8 through 6 weeks, and that's including a game with no catches. So really 4 games that he's performed, and including that 0, he still has 10.8 per catch. That's pretty good. Including, like I said, including a game with no catches. They faced Baltimore Week 7. That's been a defense that is exploitable throughout the year so far. So he's somebody that could continue to perform, especially looking at Week 7. Zay Jones, another wide receiver. He seems to be the clear wide receiver 2 there in Jacksonville. Only 33.9% owned. He played 98% snaps in week 6, which led the wide receiver group in snaps, is averaging 7.4 targets per game in his 5 games played. So definitely somebody to look at there as a solid option. Nico Collins owned 20%. He is averaging 80% snaps in the last 2 games, 2% more than Brandon Cooks actually. And he's also averaging a fantastic 18 yards per catch on the season, which if you were to extrapolate that over the season, he would have clearly the wide receiver 1 role and numbers, and he would be considered a high end wide receiver 2 if he was to get any more volume than what he's getting right now. Jameson Williams, he's a rookie wide receiver, has been on the pup so far, still recovering from the ACL injury from the title game last year with Alabama. He's owned in 47% of the league, so he might be somebody that is on your waiver, might not be. He's kind of halfway there. He has a top 12 draft capital in this past year, so that says a lot for how they feel about him. I think he'll be returning possibly in week 7, and he will immediately come in there and command targets in this offense. He provides a speed element that they need. Will most likely take snaps from DJ Chark, and I would definitely stash him. If he doesn't come back in week 7, you might be able to just stash him on your IR spot for this week, and he should be coming back soon, and he's very talented, so he's definitely going to come in here and provide some value and some upside. Another guy moving on is Van Jefferson, owned 11%. He's looking to return, and we can stash him on IR for week 7 because he's expected to come back in week 8. He should compete for targets immediately. The Rams desperately need a number 2 option besides Higbee. We know Allen Robinson he's underwhelmed definitely throughout this year, so they're going to be looking for somebody else to kind of take the load off of Cooper Kupp. Van Jefferson should be that guy. I think even McVay came out and said that he should, get targets right away. They've definitely been anticipating his return. Wan'Dale Robinson's another guy, last guy here for the wide receivers. He's owned 20%. He has the opportunity to take over as the Giants wide receiver 1. There hasn't been any guy that they put out there that has established him as a potential wide receiver 1 for that team. He has good draft capital, versatile. They can play him. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He's very explosive. He could do a lot with the ball. So he only played 23% of the snaps in week 6. He was targeted 4 times and got a touchdown on that snap percentage. His snap and opportunity share should continue to increase as he gets more comfortable in the offense. So definitely somebody that's kind of a sleeper right now going forward that not too many people are aware of. And I would take a shot on him. Maybe it's more for like if you have a deeper league, but like 12 or more. And I think that he might be a solid option to just, add him to your team. I wouldn't start him right away, but put him on your bench, see what happens. Like I said, he might be the Giants wide receiver 1, and there is going to be some volume there. They are going to have to throw. Eventually, they can't just run the ball with Saquon every single game and get it done the way that they have. I don't see that taking place. So they're going to have somebody kind of step up here at some point, and I think Wan'Dale could definitely be that guy. So moving on to tight ends, we have Robert Tonyan, 47.5% owned on sleeper. He earned 12 targets in week 6 on 63% of the snaps. He's the number 2 or number 3 option in the passing game. I know the running backs were, we were anticipating them to get a lot of targets here after Devontae Adams was traded away. That really hasn't transpired up to this point. So they've been really searching for a consistent option. Allen Lazard is definitely the wide receiver 1 there. But Tonyan, like I said, he's either the number 2 or the number 3 option because Romeo Doubs is also getting a good amount of opportunity there. But Robert Tonyan, if you need a tight end, he's definitely somebody that you can add. I think he will have a weekly floor, and he does have some upside. Evan Ingram, 37% owned. He has averaged over 70% snaps on the year. He has 16 targets in the last 2 games, averaging over 10 fantasy points per game in PPR scoring settings. So another option there. It's going to give you, good for like 10 points or so. These days, you can't really ask for too much unless you have like a Kelsey or Andrews, kind of just a crapshoot with the position. So I would definitely add him. Greg Dulcich, the rookie tight end for the Denver Broncos, only 4% owned. He made his debut on Monday Night Football. Immediately seemed to get the start there. He got the first touchdown of the game. He was definitely involved in the passing game, got some targets, and I think he's only going to continue to do better. I would probably really look at him. I don't know if I would put him over Tanyan, but he would probably be up there. He's probably my number 2 option. And I would definitely go grab him if you need tight end. Another tight end to look at, Daniel Bellinger, going back to the New York Giants. He's 7% owned. He's been a consistent part of the passing game as they've been searching for somebody to kind of take, some plays and make some plays in that passing game. And like I said, they have no clear wide receiver 1. This past week, he did lead the team with 5 targets, caught all 5 for 38 yards and 1 touchdown. He played a great 94% snap, so he's on the field constantly, which means that he's going to have the opportunities, he's going to get the targets, and that's somebody that you should definitely look at adding. And that's going to do it. I do have 2 defenses that I would look at. I don't typically go over kickers, but the 2 defenses that I would look at to add if you want to stream defense would be the New England Patriots. They have really stepped up their game recently since Bailey Zappi took over. They've kind of just been trying to play ball control, offense and defense, running the ball, playing good defense. They have a good matchup coming up this week, playing the Chicago Bears, I believe it is. So I would definitely add them. The Denver Broncos, they just showed what they're able to. I mean, they've been showing it all year, but played the LA Chargers yesterday, and they kind of shut them down. It was a very close game. If the Denver Broncos had any inkling of offense, they would have easily won that game, considering how the defense was kind of holding LA in check. So I would look at those 2 defenses and special teams if you need a streaming option. That's going to do it for the Week 7 Waiver Wire episode. And we're going to continue to put out weekly episodes. Right now I'm doing 2 episodes a week. Eventually I want to increase to maybe 3 or 4 episodes per week. And we're going to continue to have frequent updates. I'm going to update the socials. As always, you can follow us. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Might be on TikTok soon. Eventually going to build a Patreon, try to build a community here, joining in the Warrior Clan. And I just want to commit to helping everybody win their fantasy championship. So stay with us. As always, tell your friends, like the video, comment, subscribe. If you have any suggestions, comments, questions, you can comment on the video. You can email us at ffwarriorspodcast@gmail.com. And I would definitely address those questions, possibly even answer them on the podcast. So until next time, peace.